A very warm welcome to the new episode of Ink and Insights. This is your host Sumit Sharma Samir. If you are interested listening to the thought leaders from around the world, please subscribe to my channel. I'm extremely pleased to welcome Gill Whitty-Collins in my program today. Gill is an author, keynote speaker, consultant, and former senior executive at Procter Gamble, best known for her work on gender equality and her book, Why Men Win at Work. Gill embodies the transition from corporate leadership to global advocacy for workplace equality, blending her executive experience with her mission to dismantle invisible barriers for women. Jill delivers keynote speeches for major organizations including Microsoft, EY, Deloitte, Unilever, GE, Bayer, Reckitt, and Channel 4. She wrote the influential book Why Men Win at Work and How We Can Make Inequality History, which explores unconscious bias and invisible forces that hold women back in the workplace. In today's episode, we'll try to cover insights from her book, Why Men Win at Work, her corporate journey at Procter & Gamble, issues around personal empowerment and resilience, and future of work and equality. Jill, welcome to Ink and Insights with Sumit Sharma Samir.
Thank you so much. It's really lovely to be here with you. Thank you.
Jill, let's begin with your book. What inspired you to write Why Men Win at Work, and what invisible forces did you want to expose?
Well, inspire is a word. I guess we could say inspire. We could also say provoke. Would also be a word. I was in the corporate world a long time. I was at P&G for over 26 years, and obviously it's a great company, and it was a great career. But very much in my latter years there, when I got quite senior, so I got to, senior executive level, I was senior vice president for the beauty business for Europe, India, Middle East and Africa as my last role. And then in those senior roles, really did suddenly find myself in a different world, honestly, a world I did not know existed. Within the company, within society, which was that male dominant culture that you do get, frankly, in virtually every company and organization at the top levels. It doesn't usually happen at the lower levels, but at the top levels, it is the meetings, the board meetings, the exec meetings, the rooms are 80% plus men. And it's very different for a woman to operate in a male dominant culture versus a balanced culture. It is different. It is more difficult. It is sometimes even feels impossible. And I definitely felt that, but more importantly, what's much more interesting than me is I could really see the impact that it had on the women that I knew. And I could see they were different women. They were literally like different women inside those rooms and those male dominant cultures versus the women I knew outside. And frankly, they were less in those rooms, and they knew that. They would say that. So I started to be really fascinated by it. I really wanted to understand it. At that point, I didn't understand it, actually. I do now. I really do now. But I didn't really understand what was happening. So I became quite a student of it. I did a lot of reading, books, articles, everything, and really learned a lot about gender inequality and why it happens, and what we can do about it. So I said to myself, right, when I leave here, I'm going to write a book about this. Because I need to capture this. And so to your question, it was less inspired than provoked. It was almost a necessity for me because I had so much learning and insights and thinking in my mind about this that I thought needed sharing, and I thought it would be helpful to share. And frankly, I needed to put it somewhere because it was driving me crazy just having it in my mind. So I left, and I took a small break, but then actually my brain nearly exploded. So I started writing the book, and it was published in 2020. And yeah, really for me, what was interesting was not to bang on about the numbers that everybody knows about how many men are in leadership versus women and how much profit it drives if you leverage, that's important, but everyone knows it. What I was interested in was why why do men win at work? Why does this happen? Because I believe you can only really fix something when you really, really understand why it's happening, and you understand that really deeply. Peel that onion down.
Right, right. So, Jill, from your 26 years at Procter and Gamble, what was the most striking example of unconscious bias you witnessed?
It's always really difficult to give specifics on things like this because of the very nature of them. I talk a lot about invisible forces, the invisible forces in the workplace. If they were more visible and more specific and, hit you in the face more, this would be much easier to deal with, actually, because you would go, my goodness, that's really unacceptable. And, you'd be able to get hold of it and deal with it. But actually what really happens is lots of little, small and almost invisible, almost imperceptible things over time, which pile up and pile up and pile up. Having said that, so it's a bit gaslighting in a sense, you sort of get this feeling that things aren't quite right and you're not, the workplace isn't really working for you anymore. You don't really know why. Having said that, that there are the tangible things. There are a lot of things that go on, frankly, that are said and done behind closed doors that, frankly, women don't even ever hear, some of the locker room stuff. But what women do absolutely experience is the meeting room is a horrible place for most women. Most women will tell you that they know it's really important to perform in a meeting. It's extremely difficult in a male-dominant culture to get a word in edgeways, to be allowed to finish a sentence without being interrupted, to be truly heard to the point that someone actually registers the point, registers that it's smart and builds on it, rather than it almost being tumbleweed and ignored. And those are just the dynamics. They are not. I'm always really, really careful to say, because I think it's really important. Most of this stuff is not done with bad intentions, right? I can genuinely tell you that the vast majority of men that I've worked with and come across in my career have been good and decent men with very good intentions, who absolutely would say they believe in equality and they believe in women. They're not intentionally, waking up in the morning and wondering how they can build a patriarchy today and destroy as many women. So they're really, really not. These things are very, very unconscious, subconscious. They come down to the way that men and women interact, the way that men perceive women, perceptions that men have of women from being boys and very, very young children, the stereotypes that have been created in their minds of what a man is and what a woman is, what he can expect from a man and what he can expect from a woman. So all that stuff is gathering, and then we're experiencing it in a place like the meeting room where, men, frankly, I always say the meeting really starts when the men start talking. That's the way it feels. If you're lucky, you'll be in a good organization with good, decent men who'll be polite enough to let you speak and finish a point. But they'll get really, really interested when a man starts talking. And that is nothing to do with a woman's competence or capability or intelligence or what she has to add, and everything to do with all of those invisible forces that make us believe that the man is of more value, stronger, a better performer than the woman.
Right. So it's men mindset that's been structured over a period of time, rather generational. It's the mindset that's been structured, act as a subconscious, small habits that's kind of displayed, right, Jill?
Yeah.
So
it's so complex, there are so many forces. I talk about a lot of them. There's the male dominant culture in itself is favoring men and working against women for lots of reasons. You've then got the whole competence versus confidence equation, as I call it, where male confidence is very, very powerful and very, very valued. That's an issue we can talk about in itself. Men are generally a lot more savvy about being visible and making their work visible, and they don't believe in the myth of meritocracy at all, because they're quite right, it doesn't exist. So all sorts of things going on that are, and as said, virtually none of them are intentional or anyone wishing to hold anyone back. It's frankly just the workplace culture working better for men, favouring men, and actively working against women. And you need to understand it and then try and break it down.
Right. So what's one myth about women in leadership that you would love to permanently debunk?
Oh my goodness. There are so many. I mean, you know, what immediately leaps to mind is that, you know, women are not as capable as, you know, business people or leaders than men. But I don't think anyone actually really believes that anyway. I think actually everyone knows the data. Women actually have, you know, more university degrees across the world than men do. All of the leadership assessments say that women come out just as well as men. So actually, I'm not even sure there's an intelligent man on the planet who actually would look you in the eye and say, well, women are just not as good. I do think there are people, not just men, I do think there are people who, if they're honest, still believe that the woman should take the, you know, first and foremost, she should be a wife and mother, and she should take care of the family, and that will always limit a woman's career. There are people who believe that. And there are people, when I discuss this issue with people, when I do keynotes, when I do workshops, obviously I do that a lot. One of the first things that always comes back is people say, yeah, but women are always going to be behind on career because they stop and they have babies. And so they're all, and it's an absolute myth. Obviously, it's not a myth that women have babies. I think we can all agree that that is true. But it is an absolute myth that most women want that to slow down or end their career. They absolutely don't. Some women, maybe their choice may be to do that. That's absolutely fine. But it's an absolute myth that most women do. Most women that we speak to and that we research with will tell you, yes, I want children if they do. And I also want my career. And I absolutely do not want to lose my career or lose time on my career because I have children. What actually happens is the workplace does not do a very good job of supporting women who are mums. It also doesn't do a very good job of supporting dads to be dads. The workplace is absolutely terrible at supporting dads, I think. I think men are made to feel like they are not taking their job seriously and not serious about their careers if they try to, you know, take flexible working arrangements, all that stuff. So it's the workplace that can ultimately exhaust a woman so much that she gives up on her career because of kids. But it's not because she wanted to. The data actually tells us that, you know, women are just as ambitious as men at the beginning of their careers, if not more so. But honestly, the workplace grinds a lot of women down, and I think that's terrible. And I think it's terrible for the women, but it's also a real loss for the companies and organizations, right? Because they're literally losing that talent. They recruit that talent, they find that talent, they train that talent, they train those women, they create, you know, incredible employees. And then because they haven't got the workplace culture right, they lose them. You know, what a waste of everyone's energy. And then they end up, you know, with a leadership team which is, you know, full of men, which is frankly, I'm sure those men, you know, those men are very, very good, but it's literally like fishing in half of the pools of talent of the world, right? So I think that's one massive myth, that the issue is women ultimately will be mums, and that will always mean a lesser career. That is just not true, and it absolutely does not have to be true if we just got it right.
Right. So in that context, what's the single most important change you think companies could make tomorrow to accelerate equality for women?
I mean, so many, it's so difficult to put. I would have to start first with, what I always say, which is think 50%, which is just get into that mindset of, right now, the situation we're in and most companies are in is they will look at their lead teams and they'll see 80-90% men, right? So they've chosen those men because they believe they were the best.
Right.
But we know that women are 50% of the population and 50% of the intelligence in the world and the competence in the world and the capability in the world. Therefore, that can't be right. They've clearly, at some point in that process, they've clearly missed out on some women. They should be looking at a 50-50 leadership team if they were really leveraging finding all of the talent and leveraging all of the talent. So that's the first thing I would say to any leader of the organization would be think 50% in every situation. If you're in a room and you look around and you see a male dominant culture, or any dominant culture, by the way, about diversity in general, obviously, but I'm very focused on the women thing. It's only part of it. But if you see a dominant culture, you've got a problem. You've got a problem because you're not leveraging the talent you could be leveraging. And you've got a problem because that dominant culture is holding back the people who are not part of that dominant culture, the women, from performing at their best. So not only do you not have enough women, you also don't have your women at their best because they cannot be comfortable, relaxed, belong, and just focus on doing their thing in a dominant culture. It freezes you. And so that's the biggest thing I would say is just have that mentality when you're recruiting, when you're putting a team together, when you're putting a, talent review, a promotional panel, the salary part, just getting to that 50% mindset would be the first thing. Right. And then obviously, the whole discussion about truly having gender neutral policies, really gender neutral policies, but not just on paper, have them in practice as well. So when the man comes to you and asks you for flexible working or for, paternity leave that he's entitled to, you respond exactly the same way to that man as you would to a woman when she asks for it. You do not roll your eyes, raise your eyebrows, make him feel like somehow not acceptable for him, but it is you do not contribute to this self-fulfilling prophecy that we have of this is the male role in life and this is the female role in life. And yes, we've got some women who are the exceptions, but really this is the natural. It's not, there are so many brilliant women out there that we're just not leveraging. And they are, I tell you, some of them are giving up. But what many of them are actually doing is they're just going to, they're setting up their own businesses. They're basically creating their own cultures. They're saying, well, this male dominant workplace culture here doesn't work for me. So I'll go create a workplace that does work for me. It's just losing that talent. But, I have a whole list of things that people need to do because there are so many forces at play and so many action points. It's very, very difficult for me once you get me started to say. But I think, I always say to people, if you think 50%, you won't go far wrong.
तिमीसँग अब धेरै टाइम छैन है बिहे गर्नु छ भने गरिहाल नत्र घरबाट मलाई अन्त बिहे गर्दिनु भर्खर 3 वर्ष भयो एमबीबीएस जोइन गरेको 5 वर्षको कोर्स हो के भो जम्मा छ एक्सक्यूज मी सर मेरो 5 वर्षको कोर्स 3 वर्षमा सकाउन मिल्दैन गेट आउट हेलो के सोच्यौ त के सोच्ने मैले प्रिन्सिपलसँग पनि कुरा गरिसके 3 वर्षमा पनि के हुन्छ 3 वर्षमा
के भयो भाइ ल बस साउजी एक कप चिया कसले भन्यो 3 वर्षमा के हुँदैन भनेर यो हेर एलआईसी नेपालको धनवृष्टि योजनामा 3 वर्षमा पैसा फिर्ता हुन्छ
ए हो र
जीवन बीमाको साथमा धनवृष्टि 3 वर्षमा एलआईसी नेपालको धनवृष्टि योजना एलआईसी नेपाल
So, and how would you like to respond to those people who say gender inequality is no longer a problem?
It's funny because there's one of the early chapters in my book is all the things people say to you when you try to talk about gender equality, and that's absolutely top of the list. There are quite a few classics, but yeah, that is, and you know, I laugh because obviously I know it's not true, but I do understand why some people have that perception, because I think the media does an incredible job of making it seem that women are much more powerful and present in leadership than they are. So, you know, if ever a woman gets a head of state job or a CEO job, you know,
Right.
it's all over the place. If she gets a board position, it's all over the place. So I think a lot of men have this perception that women are getting all the big jobs. Women are everywhere. Women are stealing my jobs.
Right.
There's no point me even trying anymore and it's laughable. It's really laughable because when you look at the actual data, you know, you'll see, and it's barely budged since, you know, I wrote the book, which is, you know, the book was published 5 years ago now. The data is very clear. Wherever you look, every country, every organization, whether it's business, politics, sports, whatever you want to look at the top levels and it will be 90% plus men. It is even female dominated industries at the bottom, which really attract women, like beauty publishing, for example. When you look at the top, 90% plus men. So I do just point people to the data, which is, you know, that's not true, but with empathy, because I think we're being manipulated to believe that women are doing a lot better in this world than women actually are. And that is, you know, of many unhelpful things that the media does, that is one of them. And, you know, this perception that, you know, women are getting all the board roles. I mean, there's still, I think, even in the best countries, they've got about 30% of the board roles.
Right.
So it's just, there's a fantastic piece of data, which is that if men are in a room which is 30% women, they are absolutely convinced that room is at least 50%, if not majority, women. They literally perceive the presence of women as more than it is, because they're not used to seeing women in that context, because they're used to it being a very male dominant. So, you know, if even 30, and that doesn't help, right? Because men are there, literally, they're not being difficult or, you know, or dishonest. They are literally perceiving the world as there are women everywhere. And meanwhile, the women are going, well, this is laughable because I feel like a complete minority in here who's really struggling to be seen and heard. So we need to close that gap somehow, I think.
Right. Gill, I mean, if you could swap roles with a male CEO for 1 week, what would you do differently?
Oh, my goodness, I would love to do that. I would love to do that. Do you know what? I would even love to just work by his side and advise him on what to do. I mean, obviously, I'd have all sorts of business advice for him, because obviously, first and foremost, I am a business person. But on the equality front, the first thing we would do is, you know, really work on his perceptions. So really understand what his start point is. Everyone starts at a different point on this journey. And obviously on the understanding that he's one of the good, decent men with good intentions, and, you know, understand where he is, and just break down any of those myths that he may believe in that aren't true. You know, make sure that he had a deep understanding of, yes, it is an issue. The data is real. Yes, it is an issue in my organization. Really getting him to look at what percentage of women have you got at each level, right up to the top, and get him to understand that if it's any less than 50%, he's got a problem. But most importantly, he's got a huge opportunity. And then really making sure that he understood why it's really important, and that it's not really important because he is a husband or the father of girls, or because he values some women, his sister, whatever. Those things are important. But this isn't charity, right? This isn't important because it's charity work for women, because we love women. This is important because it's business. That there is huge business gain to be made from leveraging women, from achieving equality and diversity in your organization. Just because diversity, it's just better for business, right? I mean, we could talk about that for hours. Just the reality is that when we do not have a diverse enough team, we miss things. We miss insights. We miss perceptions. We miss information. We make bad decisions and bad strategies. And so that's the first thing I would do with my CEO, my new CEO friend, is spend a good amount of time really getting his head in the right place about this, that it is an issue and this is why, it's truly important, and that he's got huge business gain to be made. And this is one of the big things that I say to CEOs when I talk with them is, you drive me crazy because, if I say to you, I've got a business strategy for you that will grow your business by 25% above the base every year. Can we have a meeting and can you execute this? You would be all over it. You'd be, yes, please. But actually, that's exactly what I'm saying to you. I'm saying I've got a strategy for you that if you do it right and you do it sustainably, will lead you to a 25% stronger business every year. So why are you not? So basically getting them first to internalize, I'll win business from this and I'll win versus my competition. This is a competitive advantage at the moment because virtually no company is doing this well. Virtually no company has true representation of women right the way up. So right now it's a competitive, it won't always be, but right now it really is. So I'd get in there and then we'd literally start going through, okay, where are the issues? Where are the women getting blocked? Is it at recruitment? Is it that we're not bringing them in? At what level are we losing them? Why is that happening? What mechanisms can we put in place? What interventions can we put in place in the recruitment approach, how we advertise jobs, how we interview, how we screen, how we put together promotional panels, how we review people and assess people, how we decide how to give out salaries and bonuses, how we put together teams. So we'd look together at this is where we believe the issues are. And there are manual interventions that you can make which will overnight change the way that women can enter an organization and can perform within an organization and can feel valued in the organization and therefore want to perform at their best and stay. So, actually we could do a lot in a week. This year, we could get a lot of this fixed, and then obviously it's all about sustaining it, and that's why the embedding work's so important. You've got to do that work at the beginning with the leaders of an organization so they really get it, because if they don't really get it and it's just an ad hoc project, it'll go out the window with the next crisis, the next time there's a pandemic or a war, or this will suddenly be the charity work that gets put on ice. It needs to be seen. This is the simple summary of the biggest thing I would do with my new CEO friend, is get them to really see this as a business strategy, as one of the most important business strategies that they have, that is absolutely going to stay and is going to be executed and measured and rewarded and punished like any other strategy. When organizations do that, that's when they can really make the breakthroughs. But they have to really, really want to. Otherwise, they'll get knocked off course.
Right. Gill, you have also worked, I think, in a marketing and branding. So I have this specific question for you. If workplace inequality were a brand, how would you remarket it to make people care.
Oh my goodness. So if inequality was a brand, or if equality was a brand?
If inequality is a brand, how would you remarket it?
So can I
make it people care?
Can I remarket it as equality then? You mean to turn it into a positive? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I would need to see. You've got my brand head going now, and then I'd have to really apply myself to that. But I think, fundamentally, it would be the work to do that would be to go to the positive benefit, like you do with any brand, right? What is the benefit of this thing that I'm selling to you, which is I'm selling you equality, right? I'm selling you gender equality. I'm telling you it's great. I'm telling you you need it. I'm telling you it's going to change your life. It would be really to get to the essence of what it is that it is bringing in a really simple way, and to find a way to, bring that to life in a way that the target audience, which brutally is men, because men have 90% of the leadership of the world, so they're making 90% of the decisions, or influencing 100% of the decisions, frankly. What does my target consumer man need to understand about the benefit of my product, gender equality, in order for him to go, yes, that is exactly what I need, and I am now committed to it. And as you asked it, it's a brilliant question, because it makes me realize that I haven't done a good enough job of that. So
thank you.
I think what I've done and what I do is an excellent job of explaining the issue, why men win at work, in a way that is very powerful for men as well. It's deliberately targeted to get men to have that epiphany and that penny drop, to understand, oh my goodness, it is an issue, and oh my goodness, I am contributing to it, and what can I do? I think I do a very good job of helping them to understand, why that's happening, the invisible power of culture, competence versus confidence, the umbrella theory and visibility, the time gap, all that stuff, and the things that we can do about it. But what I haven't done is distilled it down to the essence of a really, really simple brand message of why you should do this, that's compelling and memorable. And so I'm going to work on that. That's exactly what this needs. It needs simplifying down. I think anyone who reads my book and listens to my speeches and follows me, and they know. But the reality is, most people do not have the time for that, and that's the truth about brands, right? That's the biggest thing we're taught about branding when we first get trained as brand managers. Is people are not sitting around thinking about your category, your brand, waiting for your piece of marketing to drop in front of them. You have to cut through their everyday lives with millions of inputs with something really, really simple and insightful that's going to make them act. And so it's a very interesting point. How do we do that with gender equality? How do we cut through the lives of all those men, very, very busy, things working pretty well for them in many ways right now? How do we cut through that with something very simple? I shall give that a lot of thought.
Gill, my last question for today's program now is, if you had to summarize your mission in a single metaphor, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know if I can do it in a metaphor, but I can do it in a number, which is 50%. That's it. I very simply believe, well, I know women are 50% of the world. I know we're as intelligent. I know we're as capable. I know we're as competent. I want the way the world looks, the way leadership looks, to represent the way women, the role women play in the world, which is 50% of it. So I'm really passionate about that because I really believe that, of course, I believe that for women as a supporter of women, you know, I'm a woman. I hate to see us undervalued and underleveraged. But actually, it's more important that I deeply believe the world would be a better place if we ran it 50-50. I believe we're missing out. And I absolutely do not believe in any more than 50%. I do not believe men are better than women. I do not believe I hate it when people post about, isn't this brilliant? This country's being entirely run by women. I think, well, how is that any better than the country being run entirely by men? You're just going to have a load of women missing things instead of. So yeah, I just believe in 50%, 50-50. Let's share it. Let's do it together. We'll do it better if we do it together.
Absolutely, absolutely, Gill. And I'd like to wish you good luck for all the great work that you are doing. And I'd like to thank you once again for being a part of my show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Brilliant questions. You've got me thinking.
Thank you.